So first, hi Pernell. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to ask you a couple questions and learn more about you.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm definitely excited to participate.
Great. So first, I just want to ask just a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up, and what did you want to be when you grew up?
Wow, wow. So I grew up in Berkeley Heights, New Jersey, which is in Union County. Berkeley Heights is near Summit, New Jersey, Scotch Plains, New Providence, in that area.
Mhm.
So when I grew up, initially I wanted to be an attorney. Uh, Watched a lot of what was popular back then, I guess, LA law, and I had a couple of prominent attorneys in my family. So I saw myself being an attorney. I like to read a lot and write and speak. And so initially that's where I thought that I was going to do.
Did you ever pursue that when you got a little older and went off to college or anything?
Yeah, I did. I studied political science and different, coursework in college that would set you up to go into law school. And then I eventually did go into law school. I went to Howard University School of Law. But then I realized once I got there, I didn't like law school. And I had already been to grad school. I decided that I wanted to make a career turn and do something that I really was more passionate about, and also not really continue to incur so much school debt. So,
Well, that's brave to kind of change direction a little bit. So what did you do, and what did you wind up doing, and how did you kind of find your way there?
yeah, so what I ended up doing, I was very fortunate. One of my roommates worked for a consulting firm, and I was living in Washington, D.C. And so my roommate was working at a consulting firm, and he thought, based on my skill set and some of my passions, that I might be a good fit. And so this was not your typical consulting firm. It wasn't management consulting. It was more so research consulting. And so with research consulting, you work with clients such as national nonprofits, different schools, colleges, governments. And so, yeah, it was fantastic. I worked for a national consulting firm called SRI International, based out of Palo Alto near Stanford, but I worked in their DC office.
And what are you doing? What are you doing now? Are you still doing something similar or something completely different?
Yeah, now what I'm doing is I work in philanthropy. And so I work for a foundation. And then I also, for the past 10 years or so, I've been working in entrepreneurship and impact investment. And so I help entrepreneurs start businesses. And I also have a few startups that I'm working on.
Pernell, can you give us some examples of the businesses that you've start to get off the ground?
Yeah, so I've worked with a range of businesses. Initially, I worked with entrepreneurs from under-resourced areas, and so I oversaw impact investment project where we use capital to help incubate entrepreneurs who historically haven't received capital. And so for these type of entrepreneurs, they had all types of businesses, whether it was tech businesses, mental health app businesses, fashion businesses, um, social impact businesses. So yeah, it really runs the gamut.
Very, very rewarding work. Very rewarding.
Sure. Yeah, definitely very rewarding. And not just working with entrepreneurs and underserved areas, but I work with, typical entrepreneurs as well. So been able to see different people scale their business and stuff like that. Well, there's a bath and beauty. I work with a couple of bath and beauty entrepreneurs who now have some of their products in Target and stuff like that. But yeah, no, it's great to help people who have a passion and a dream and willing to take a risk and help them, or help a little bit, whatever I can contribute to get them over the hump.
That's such an important skill to have, that ability to kind of see the big picture and then kind of dial it down into the details and what it takes to get there. Is that something that you think you've always had, or have you sort of like, is that a new thing you've discovered about yourself?
Yeah, I think that it's really been, that's a great point. I think that's something that I've sort of developed along the trajectory of my career. And so I started off in politics. And so I worked for President Clinton doing opposition research, and then after that, I worked on Capitol Hill. So when you work for a U.S. senator, you cover the whole state, and so you need to see the big picture, but then you also need to understand what are some of the micro issues as well. And so I think that time working on Capitol Hill, able to see the lay of the land for former Senator of New Jersey, Robert Torricelli, to really understand the needs of the state and trying to understand how we're going to address those needs, but then also address some of the needs on a local level, and then also get it passed in the budget, and depending on if your party's in power or not. So it really helped me to understand, to look things from a broad scope, nationally and globally, but then also how to bring it locally as well.
Sure. And then channel it into someone's, dreams and passions. And that's a very cool thing to do as well.
Sure.
And I'd love to hear more too about your family. Are you married? Do you have kids?
Yeah, I am happily married. This year will be our 10th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks so much. Thanks so much. And I have two young daughters who are 7 and 5.
Are you, sorry, Ali, I had a
Oh, go ahead.
quick question. Are you allowed to share with us, do you have any plans for that 10th anniversary, or do you want to keep that under your hat as a surprise?
My wife would laugh because, how can I put it? I'm a very good executor, but I'm not always a good planner. I like to wait maybe like 2 or 3 weeks in advance, so she'd laugh. So I don't have any ideas right now, but listen, given COVID and everything, I'd have to be very creative. So I'm not sure. Our anniversary's in September, so it'll be something we'll have to get out. We've been so closed in for so long, so I'll have to notify the grandparents and something local, take her out, but be creative in terms of different elements of the night. So
I'm sure it'll be wonderful. And Ali.
And speaking of, what have you been doing to keep yourself busy during the pandemic?
Well, I think most parents who are employed would say that they have worked harder remotely than they did in the office. And so it really hasn't been that hard staying busy. I mean, because when you're home, everything's at your fingertips, right? And so sometimes I start 7 a.m. or 8 a.m., depending if I have a meeting or a call. Because I have younger children, in addition to making sure that they're on task, I feel like sometimes I'm also the teacher assistant. So my youngest is in kindergarten and my oldest in first grade. So making sure my youngest can navigate Zoom and all that other stuff. But and then just really trying to maintain my health, right? Given the seriousness of the situation, just trying to utilize some of the things that we have in our home gym, from our spin bike and working out. So just trying to stay healthy as much as I can. And just trying to make it fun, right? So this is not how I grew up. This is not how many of us grew up. So my wife and I are just really trying to make it creative and making sure the kids feel some sense of normalcy.
That optimism is very inspiring, not just to kind of get through it, but to get through it in a way that makes you feel like you are sort of, keeping yourself sharp and getting better and being creative. And I think that's really, really admirable.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Listen, you don't get these years back with your kids, so you just try to make every moment count.
Very true. And how long have you been in Radburn?
We are coming up on 3 years now. Yeah.
And how did you find Radburn?
So it was actually our realtor. And so we were looking at River Edge, Glen Rock, Scotch Plains a little bit, and then Fair Lawn as a whole. And then our realtor said, actually, because she lived here at one point, she said, actually, I want to direct you to another part of Fair Lawn called Radburn, which wasn't on our map. And so once we started looking around and looking at the layout and looking at the parks and everything, we really fell in love with the community.
Where did you used to live, Pernell? Where was your first home?
We were living in Hackensack, so not too far.
Mm-hmm. And what do you have a thing that's sort of the a thing that either jumped out at you at the time about Radburn, or something that sort of become your favorite thing about the community?
Well, I would say that just getting to know people, for us, um, for Americans of color, you want to make sure that you feel comfortable in any community, particularly have young children. And so every time that we came to Fair Lawn and Radburn and just talked to people on the street, and because I'm a people person, I'm fairly extroverted, and so I will ask people questions. Hey, do you live in town? Do you live in there? What do you think about it? Do you have children? And we always got great responses. People were very warm and open to talking to us. And we saw one of our neighbors. She wasn't our neighbor at the time, but she was walking her dog, and so she was telling us about the neighborhood. And then when we were looking at the particular home where we live now, and we saw how close it was to our park, we were like, "Oh wow, this is great. Oh, the kids would love it." So that's what really sold us.
Wow.
Sorry, Renee, did you want to ask anything or jump in?
No. I'm just enjoying this is Allie's first lead, and she's doing a wonderful job. And, and we're just so happy to have, to be interviewing you, Pernell, because, you and I connected back a while ago before the pandemic. I think it was 2019, probably. And you wanted to do a service for the kids in the community.
Oh, sure.
Right?
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about, because we actually worked on an entrepreneur. So tell us a little bit about that entrepreneur that maybe we could set it up again and have kids come. What was your vision for that entrepreneur webinar?
Yeah, and so my experiences have not just been working with adult entrepreneurs. I've also worked with youth entrepreneurs. And so when I really first got into philanthropy after consulting, I worked for a large national nonprofit in New York called the National Foundation for Teaching Entrepreneurship. And so I help young kids start businesses all through New York and around the country. And so I've been able to see how kids who may be disinterested with school or not find it interesting or really understand the importance of math and reading, once they get an opportunity to start something that they're really interested in, it all starts to connect. And so I think this was right around when COVID first began. And also around that time, the Radburn Association sponsored a vendor holiday event. And so my wife participated. She has her own little business that she's starting, and she was baking some cookies and other things. She does cooking classes with youth. And so being there and just seeing a number of the entrepreneurs, I was really blown away. And I think someone might have mentioned to me that there were a number of youth entrepreneurs who were there and were really excited. And I just said, I like Radburn a lot. I love Radburn. I said, I'd love to give back. And so I just decided to put it out there if the association would be open to having a little small incubator or class. And so that was my vision for the project.
Yeah, we were talking in the Zoom green room, and I actually had it in my list of things to do and maybe you want to help us with this. We really want to start to pioneer young newscasters and young entertainers to do what we're doing. So my vision is to have them, with parent permission, of course, but to have them, if they were interested in being the newscaster, to interview their friends or an adult, whoever they choose to interview. And we would kind of support them and help them to learn how to manifest it. So that's my vision for children in this community.
Awesome.
Pernell, can you tell us a little bit about your wife? I know you just said that she does cooking, which we're going to start underway in a little bit with the cooking classes online and all that. But tell us a little bit about how you met and how long you've been married.
Yeah, so my wife's name is Merlane, and she grew up in the Upper West Side. And I met her about 13, 14 years ago at a fellow friend's 40th birthday party. And so, yeah, we met each other. And so, for anybody who's single, particularly if you live in New Jersey, if you find somebody live in New Jersey and doesn't live in New York, you don't have to commute all the time. That's also a bonus. So when we found out we both lived in New Jersey, like, oh wow, that's great. So we were very excited. And so yeah, Marlene has worked in marketing and media for the bulk of her career. And so she worked for Essence Magazine for about 15 years or so, Money Magazine, a few magazines. And then as you guys know, print journalism is kind of going downhill. And so right now she does some marketing for L'Oreal. But her passion from the time that I met her has been children, which drew me to her, and then also cooking, which drew my stomach to her. And so yeah, so we've always talked about her trying to find her passion and figuring out a way to bring it together. And so last year she launched her business called Cook and Create for Kids. And she initially started doing food prep, and she was cooking out of a commercial kitchen in Inglewood. And so she had about 10 clients or so, and she was helping a lot of parents who were very busy or didn't like to cook. And yeah, she was doing a lot of cooking and stuff like that. But then the pandemic hit. And so she pivoted to doing more of an online business. And so she's been doing cooking classes from cultural cooking to baking, Christmas cookies, cooking and all that stuff. And so it's been really great. And actually today, Radburn schools for their cultural day, they decided they were going to focus on Haiti, where her family's from. And so they asked her to do a cooking demonstration. And so for 3 classes today, she's been teaching, doing a very rudimentary instruction of how to make Haitian bread. And so it's been great. It's been great.
I think that's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Showcases you very well because you're authentic in who you are. You're doing the same thing to your wife who you love as you do to those that want entrepreneur. Like you guys are working to find out what your visions are and what your goals are and what your dreams are. And that really speaks volumes about you and your wife, the marriage you have.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, sometimes you have to let people kind of find their own way, and sometimes people don't want help. And so, but it clicked with me. I said, listen, if I also do coaching, as I said. And so I said, listen, if I'm coaching all these other people, and if my wife is not doing great, that's not going to look good for me. And so I just started asking her, hey, do you want my help? And so, yeah, it all worked out.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And what's your favorite thing that she cooks?
I would say definitely Haitian food, any type of Haitian food. And then I would also say probably sorry, so many, probably Italian food. She can do it all.
That's good. That's good. Well, I'm silly. We should have invited your wife to join you on this interview, but we'll interview your wife for a whole hour by herself. I'm sure she's got wonderful things to say.
Yeah, no, definitely. That would be great. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Allie?
I mean, I always like to ask people, especially now, I mean, we were just talking about, it's finally feeling like spring outside, and that always kind of fills me with inspiration. And I just like, what are your sort of looking towards the future? What do you have any like immediate goals or anything, new skills you want to learn or something that you want to accomplish? And you've done so much already. What's kind of on the horizon for you?
It's a great question. I mean, for me, while I'm Christian, I was also raised Catholic, and so I still participate in Lent. And so I always try to not just give up stuff, I always try to do stuff. And so I'm actually working on my wife's native language, Haitian Creole, because her father-in-law always bugs me that I can't speak Creole or French. So for these next 40 days, I'm trying to learn a little bit of the language. So I'm trying to push myself to do that. I'm also working on another aspect of my entrepreneurship business. I'm working on a podcast. And so I've been, researching microphones, researching editing material. And so the podcast will be focusing on, spotlighting different entrepreneurs and, so people can hear their journeys and understand what it takes to, get to launch different businesses. And so I've been working on a list of people that I plan to interview and stuff like that. And so I hope to launch that by end of March. as you said, it's getting warm, and so you'll be outside and, maybe going to the beach if it's nice. So definitely been working out harder a lot lately. And so getting on that bike and, walking around the block and trying to, eat clean and gave up a lot of stuff for Lent. And so, yeah, definitely getting ready for the summer. And yeah, and then also just the kids, we're always really focused on the kids. And so we put them in some different activities, some piano classes and some other classes, and just really trying to help them to grow as well.
To develop. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. And what would you say to someone, I mean, even a kid who wants to be an entrepreneur or, thinks about going in that direction? Are there what would you say are the top 3 things that people should either know, or the skills that they should have if someone is looking for a way to, kind of go that direction to, improve their own skills?
Yeah. I mean, I always tell people it's a few things. One, think about things that you're passionate about, that you spend a lot of time with, because starting a business is not easy, and you will have some challenges. But if you are focusing on an area that you're passionate about, it'll kind of help get you through. The second thing is, even though I said the first thing, just because it's passion, it doesn't mean that customers want it. And so I always tell them to kind of gauge and see if this is something that they think others will want to do or want to buy, or, whether it's a service or what have you. Just do a little research, whether it's your friends. You have all these, hopefully you have a, diverse set of friends that you can talk to, or family members that you can poll. And then just do it, right? Because the thing is this, as we all know, because we're all a little bit older, but when you fail, it's not really about failing, you're just learning. And so if kids can try and quote unquote fail at the age of 7 and 10, by the time they're 12 and 13, who knows, they might have $1 million business. So I always try to tell people, even my kids, that because kids naturally they want to do things right for their parents or for the teachers. And I just tell them, listen, just do your best. And if you don't get it right, it's okay. You're still learning.
I just saw online, I think it was Tim Tebow that said, it's not about, I believe it was Tim Tebow, it's not about the end result, it's about the journey.
Yes, totally. Yeah, it's really about the process and what you learn along the way. And as Tim Tebow would probably say, how you sort of execute that journey, what type of character and discipline that you use to get there.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
And thinking about, it's so admirable to focus on the idea of giving back and, spending so much of your time thinking about other people's dreams and other people's goals. And I'm curious about what drives you to do that.
I think for me, it starts probably with my parents, right? And so someone had interviewed me recently, and I think they sort of asked the same question. When you see other people giving back, it sort of, trickles down on you. And so my parents are both from Baltimore. They're both pretty much overachievers in their family, first to go to college, first to go to grad school, all that stuff. And so my parents are kind of like, superhuman in our family, because unfortunately, a lot of people in my family, whether it's Baltimore and other urban cities, just aren't doing as well. And so when my father left Baltimore to become an engineer at Bell Labs, it really just changed the trajectory for me and my sister. And so I've been blessed to go to great high schools, go to, great colleges, Ivy League grad schools. So I've always felt the need that I had to give back first to my own family. And so, because I saw my parents do it, I saw my father, drive down, many, many weekends to Baltimore, 2.5, 3 hour drive, but to help my grandmother, to help my cousins. So my mother doing the same thing. So seeing my parents do it, knowing how much I've been blessed with, it's a simple price.
I got a few silly questions to ask them. Are we ready for those, Allie?
Sure, yeah.
So we always like to ask silly questions, what are your favorite movies?
like all types of music. I grew up, I was a DJ when I was younger. And so I like club music, house music, hip hop music, R&B. And I also grew up on a little heavy metal too. So a little heavy metal as well.
And before the pandemic, were there restaurants in town you liked to visit?
Yeah, I think that obviously a little bit of Starbucks, but now they have a new cafe who I'm kind of a mentor to called House Cafe on River Road. So that's one of
Oh,
my favorite spots that I go to now. In terms of local restaurants, we've been to the Dutch House a couple times. They have a great burger over there. Panera Bread, but I always like to shop local. Um, oh, Soup Mason is a place that's fairly new that I've gotten to know the owner there too. That we still go to regularly. They have a variety of soups and entrees, and so I would say that's probably one of our favorite spots.
good. Thanks for sharing. Go ahead, Ellie. Close it out.
Is there anything that you either want to talk about or that we should have asked you?
Do I like living here in Radburn?
Do you like living here in Radburn?
No, no, I love living here at Radburn, and I'm happy that I asked you to ask that question, just because it's been such a welcoming place for my family, and listen, the first day that we moved here, one of the former like town historians used to live across the street, and she brought a couple books that she had written and some cupcakes, and one of our other neighbors, um, Liz Kuriyama, she had brought a list of places to go out to eat and other stuff. So we've always just felt welcome from day one, and we're just really grateful to be here and to be in a neighborhood where there's other young families with young kids, and everyone just seems to get along.
That's why we wanted to start this program, getting to know your neighborhood, because there's so many wonderful people in the community that, they just do things from the goodness of their heart, because it's almost like Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. Like the love that's spread here is just incredible. And we wanted to get to know each individual. So if there's anybody that you would like to recommend, just please send it to us, because we would love to, interview them, get to know them, and to put their story out.
Well, thank you, Pernell, so much. It was such a pleasure talking to you. Hopefully, once the pandemic is over, we can meet in person. But it was great to chat and hear more about you, and very inspiring. So thank you so much for joining us.
Well, no, you did a great job, Allie, for your first interview, and you're definitely a pro already.
Thank you. I appreciate that.